Berlin, 1907. The Moltke-Eulenburg affair was so scandalous that the public bought transcripts of the trials so they could read every word of the shocking testimony. The cover of this transcript shows General Kuno Graf von Moltke on the left and Philip, Prince of Eulenburg, on the right. They were accused of being lovers, so they sued the journalist, Maximilian Harden, for libel, and he sued them back, setting off a storm of plotting and intrigue. Before it was over, 6 military officers had committed suicide and 20 officers were convicted in court-martials for homosexual conduct. Here are photos of some of the main figures. Moltke in the center in a top hat. On the left, his former wife, who testified that in 9 years of marriage they had sex only 2 times, the night of their wedding, the following night, and never again. On the right, the journalist Harden. And here is Eulenburg, so close to the Kaiser that he addressed him as Liebchen, which means darling, and spoke to him using the familiar form du. 10 witnesses testified to spying on Eulenburg through a keyhole. And here is Harden again, the one in the center wearing a bowler hat. This cartoon shows Harden sweeping Eulenburg and von Moltke into the gutter while the crowd cheers. In the end, Moltke was acquitted and retired from public life. Eulenburg collapsed in court and was judged unfit to stand trial. And of course, there were the suicides and court-martials. Many careers in the diplomatic service were ruined. Kaiser Wilhelm suffered a nervous breakdown. Finally, there was Infantry General Graf Dietrich von Hülsen-Hessler, the chief of the military secretariat. In 1908, General von Hülsen-Hessler took part in a light-hearted moment of fun at an evening function in honor of the Kaiser. He danced for the assembly, dressed in a pink tutu and wearing a rose wreath. He executed pirouettes and jumps and blew kisses to the audience. Then the general took a bow, collapsed, and died on stage of a heart attack. Vienna, 1913. Colonel Alfred Rettel was head of counterintelligence for the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He was a very up-to-date and dynamic spy master. Rettel introduced the use of cameras and fingerprints in the Bureau, and he trained agents in the craft of counter-espionage. Colonel Rettel was also gay. When a general delivery letter addressed to a suspicious cover name arrived at the post office, the highly trained agents opened it and found a large amount of money. So they set up a trap to see who would claim it. It was claimed by none other than Rettel himself. He was traced to a hotel room where a party of military officers confronted him. He admitted selling secrets to Russia. The Army Chief of Staff then ordered him to be left alone in his room with a loaded revolver. And this is what happened next. Since there was no trial, and no signed confession, and no documentation, there was no account of his motivation. Was it just for the money, or was there something else? U.S. Senators Kenneth Wherry, a Nebraska Republican, on the left in this picture, and J. Lister Hill, an Alabama Democrat, on the right, decided that Rettel was being blackmailed by the Russians over his sexuality, and they published their theory as fact in their 1950 report on the employment of homosexuals and other sex perverts in government. This then was cited as an authority by Senator Joseph McCarthy in his campaign for mass firings of suspected homosexuals. And that is how Colonel Rettel's espionage scandal of 1913 turned into a gay scandal in 1950. Munich, 1934. The Night of the Long Knives started in the early morning hours of Saturday, June 30, when Hitler and his entourage flew to Munich and threw the local stormtroopers into prison. Then with the SS, he proceeded to the nearby resort of Bad Wiessee and surprised Ernst Röhm and the entire stormtrooper leadership still in bed. Röhm was an old comrade of Hitler's from the time of the beer hall putsch. This is Röhm and Hitler in the old days. In the time since, Röhm had built the brown shirt stormtroopers from a ragtag band of hoodlums, to the paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party. They were still a band of hoodlums, a shock force for street brawls like this one. Röhm also was known publicly as a homosexual. He had been tried 5 times on charges under the famous Article 175, but never convicted. The opposition press had published his private correspondence, where he frankly discussed his sexual preference. The stormtroopers and their junior auxiliary, the Hitler Youth, were reputed to be very gay-friendly. Now Hitler and the SS had turned on Röhm and the brown shirts. By noon on Saturday, the Berliner Lokal published an extra edition. Extra, extra, read all about it. Sweeping action by the Fuhrer. Röhm removed from office, expelled from the party and the stormtroopers. But the night of the long knives went on all weekend. By Monday, these were the headlines. Captain Röhm executed. Arrested stormtroop commander given 10 minutes to kill himself, shot when he refuses. Edmund Heines, a veteran street brawler, was Röhm's second in command. Some people said it was Heines and a gang of homosexual stormtroopers who set the Reichstag fire. Probably not true, but the fact that people said it tells you something. In the Saturday morning surprise raid, the SS found Heines in bed with an 18-year-old stormtrooper. According to an Associated Press report at the time, Heines lunged at Hitler with a revolver, but an aide saved him. Heines and the young man both were taken outside and shot. After it was all over, Hitler justified the purge on moral grounds. He called Heines one of the leaders of a small group of elements which were held together through a like disposition, and said the purpose of the raid was to root out asocial and diseased elements which had been poisoning the wells of the nation's domestic life.